In the last video, we covered combat. In this one, we're going to break down the best teams you should be using in patch 1.0 in Neverness to Everness. Before we start, a quick disclaimer. These teams are based on meta and my own testing, but you don't have to follow them strictly. Play how you would like to. This is just to help you optimize if you want to. We will divide the teams into two categories, early game and endgame. After each team, we will also go over their arc setups and rotations. One important thing to note, arc choices can vary depending on the team. Generally, consoles are split into DPS types and support types. Let's start with the early game. Your core team here is main character, Mint and Adler. This team is extremely solid early on and provides good sustain and consistent damage. The rotation starts with the main character, who will use their skill to trigger Esper Cycle. Switch to Mint and she will use her skill and ultimate. Switch to Adler, who will use his skill for shield and then the ultimate. Then go back to Mint to do more damage, and once MC's skill is ready to use, switch back and use their ultimate and end skill, and everything repeats from here. This loop will carry you through comfortably during early progression. Now for the arc setups, MC will use Day Off or Your Happiness is Precious, Mint will use Mind Royale for energy recovery, and Adler will use Umbrella for survivability. This setup will carry you until Hunter level 30, where you unlock your S-Rank selector. Now moving into the endgame, and we will assume that you have unlocked your S-Rank selector. Now let's go over Nunnally's endgame setup. The team will consist of the characters we just mentioned and also Nunnally. This is basically your early team upgraded with her, making it very strong for endgame content. In this team, Nunnally should be your main DPS, while Mint as your sub, MC as your cycle enabler, and Adler as your sustainer and support. For the rotation, starting with main character's skill, going to Mint skill and ultimate, then go to Adler's skill and ultimate, switch to Nunnally and do her full DPS rotation, and then switch back to main character, ultimate and then skill, and now repeat from there. This is definitely one of the best budget-friendly endgame teams, but this is not the ceiling of this team, as we still have an upgraded variant, and in this version we will swap out Mint and Adler for Julian and Sakiri, and in this team Julian functions as grouping and also burst DPS, while Sakiri functions as a team-wide damage buffer and also functions as more grouping. Here's this team's rotation. Starting with main character's skill, swapping to Julian to use her skill and ultimate, swap to Sakiri using her skill and ultimate as well, then now go to Nunnally to do her damage rotation. After that, go back to MC, ultimate and then skill, and then we will repeat from here. If you don't have Sakiri, you can replace her with Edgar, Adler or Haniel. Here are the arc setups. Nunnally will use her signature arc, Ready, or as a lesser option, Ora. MC will use Day Off, Mint will use Mind Royale, and Adler will use Umbrella. Julian will use Reality Refuge, and Sakiri will use Good Boy's Grand Adventure. For picking on your S rank, we recommend to hit Pity on the standard banner first before choosing your selector. This avoids getting duplicate units if you don't want to. If you pick Baitang, your team should look like this. Baitang as your main DPS, Hanyo or Sakiri as your team damage buff, Daffodil as sub DPS and stagger damage, and Adler or Fadia as defense and buffs. Do note that you can swap Hanyo and Adler to Sakiri and Fadia, but this requires a lot of luck or the amount of pulls invested into the standard banner. Here's your rotation, starting with Sakiri or Adler, skill and ultimate, then going to Baitang, where he would preferably use a dodge and then skill, then connecting with an ultimate to start doing damage. Once his Esper meter is full, swap to Daffodil and then fill her Esper meter up as well. Then switch to Hanyo and Fadia for Discord, use their skill and ultimate. Then we switch back to Sakiri or Adler and then repeat from there. These are the arc setups. Baitang will use the signature arc, Camellia Society. Daffodil will use Useful Fantasy. Adler will use Umbrella. Fadia will use Eternal Waltz. Hanyo will use Blow Up the Crowd. And lastly, Sakiri will be using Good Boy's Grand Adventure. Now let's talk about Hathor's team. Do note that Hathor's damage is currently lower based on testing, but this should still be viable. And this team will consist of Hathor, Hanyo, main character, and Skia. Hathor is your main DPS, Hanyo being the damage support, and Skia will overall just do some extra damage. Start off the rotation with the main character's skill, then swap to Hel to perform her combo to do the first part of the damage. Then immediately swap to Skia to do some stagger damage and fill the meter. Once it's done, swap to Hel for damage buffs and inflicting stain on the enemies. Then go back to Hathor to do another DPS rotation and unleash her full DPS. Going over the arc setups, Hathor will use Raging Flames, Hel will use Blow Up the Crowd, main character will use Day Off, and lastly, Skia will use Good Boys Grand Adventure, or failing you, Heavy in My Heart. Finally, let's talk about Chiz team. Chiz is one of the strongest and most accessible units at launch because you can get her for free, and max her as well. And on top of that, she's a DPS that can carry you through early game, and also still do decent damage at the end game. The team setup is of the following: Chiz as your main DPS, Mint or Julian as your Bloom enabler and sub DPS, Skia and Hathor as another sub DPS and a Lakshana teammate for charge, and finally Edgar as your healer. The team's rotation is as follows. Starting with Chiz, immediately stop spamming basic attack. This is to get the money on the core passive up. Once you've done a basic rotation, you can swap off to an Anima character for Blossom, and once you've filled their meter, you can swap to Skia or Hathor for charge. Once the meter is full, you can now go back to Chiz, do another basic attack rotation, and then skill, and then use her ultimate. But a very important thing to note of is when she's in her ultimate, always press her skill when the core passive is passing over a profit, which, by the way, the amount of profits that you would see can be very inconsistent. And then repeat from the start of this rotation. Quickly going over their arc setup, Chiz will use Contemplative Cat, Julian will use Reality Refuge, Mint will use Fluffer Fleetless or Clear Skies, Skia will use Good Boys Grand Adventure or Watch Your Heads, Hathor will use Raging Flames, and Edgar will use Call of the Twisted City. That covers the best team comps for Neverness to Everness right now. Keep in mind that the game is still evolving, and team compositions will change with future updates and new character releases. If you have any questions, drop them in the comments or join our Discord where we can discuss builds and strategies together. If this guide helped you, leave a like and comment, I'd really appreciate it. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.